right, hello, this is Bible History, Lesson 32, Samson, Part 1. This is taken out of the book of Judges 13 and 14. Remember, the Israelites had settled in Canaan, the land that was chosen and given to them. They've had issues with their neighbors. Sometimes they start to follow their neighbors and do the things they're not supposed to do, idol worship and getting out of the habit of remembering the Lord. So we had Gideon last time. This time this is about Samson, one of the judges of Israel. And it's the footnotes. Number 1, Nazarite, one dedicated to serve God. And then the second footnote, I forgot to look at these before, so I'm looking to see footnote number 2. They're tiny, tiny letters. You probably found it already faster than me, and I'm still looking. There's 3, so 2 has to be between. It says, there it is, against the Philistines, against, oppose or resist. I think we know what against means. And then number 3, entice means to coax, try to get someone to do it. All right, here we go. The people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, so the Lord gave them into the hand of the Philistines. There was a man whose name was Manoah. His wife had no children. The angel of the Lord appeared and said, "You shall bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God, and he shall begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines." The woman bore a son and called his name Samson. The young man grew, and the Lord blessed him. Samson went down to Timnah and saw one of the daughters of the Philistines. He told his father and mother, "Get her for me as my wife." His father and mother said, "Is there not a woman among the daughters among all our people?" His father and mother did not know that it was from the Lord, for he was seeking an opportunity against the Philistines. They came to the vineyards of Timnah, and a young lion came toward Samson roaring. The Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and he tore the lion in pieces. After some days he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion, and there was a swarm of bees in the body of the lion, and honey. He scraped it out into his hands and went on, eating as he went. His father went down to the woman, and Samson prepared a feast there. As soon as the people saw him, they brought 30 companions to be with him. Samson said, "Let me now put a riddle to you. If you can tell me what it is, then I will give you 30 linen garments. Lost my spot. Out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet." In 3 days they could not solve the riddle. They said to Samson's wife, "Entice your husband to tell us what the riddle is, lest we burn you and your father's house with fire." Samson's wife wept over him, and on the 7th day he told her, because she pressed him hard. Then she told the riddle to her people. The men of the city said to him, "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" The Spirit of the Lord rushed upon Samson, and he struck down 30 men of the town and took their spoil and gave the garments to those who had told the riddle. On the next page, on page 71, for reflection, how do we know that God had a plan for Samson even before he was born? Because the angel of the Lord visited the man and the wife and said, "You'll bear a son, and he's going to begin to save his people from from the Philistines." All right, so in the softcover book, do thinking about God's word, do working with God's word, and then go ahead and look at applying God's word. You don't have to fill them in unless you're very confident about that, otherwise you can wait. So here's your time to pause and then come on back because I'm starting the answers. Thinking about God's word. 1. Why did the Lord give Israel over to the Philistines? You can read the answer in Judges 13:1, and it's the first sentence of our story right out of Judges 13 verse 1. Israel once again did evil in the eyes of the Lord. 2. What message did the angel of the Lord bring to Manoah's wife? She would have a son, and she wasn't supposed to use a razor on his head. He was going to be a Nazarite, which means dedicated to serve God. And the next part of that question, what was Manoah's son to do? He was going to begin to save the Israelites from the Philistines. 3. Whom did Samson want permission to marry? A Philistine woman. Why didn't Samson's father and mother like his marriage to a Philistine girl? Because they wanted him to marry an Israelite. Why did the Lord permit the marriage? He was preparing an opportunity to confront the Philistines. 4. How did Samson show his strength when a young lion came toward him? He tore him into pieces with his bare hands. But how can you tell that it was really not Samson who killed the lion? Because it says the Spirit of the Lord came upon Samson. So that's important throughout the whole story of Samson. God's power working through Samson, not Samson's strength, although he was a very strong man. 5. What riddle did Samson give his companions? Out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. What should Samson's wife have done when the men threatened to burn her and her father's household? She should have explained the situation to Samson. And what you would have done, you can have whatever you have. We probably don't know what we would have done until we're in the situation. But basically, she's breaking the 6th commandment of not really being faithful to her husband. She wasn't honoring the marriage by siding with her people and not explaining to her husband what was going on. Working with God's word. 1. What did Manoah's wife name her child? Samson. 2. Where did Samson find a wife? Among the Philistines, in Timnah. 3. To how many companions did Samson tell a riddle? 30. 4. How did Samson's wife get the answer to the riddle? She cried to him for 7 days and pressed him hard for the answer. In other words, she was whining and, oh, come on, tell me. She whined and begged and pestered him. 5. Where did Samson get the clothes to give the men? From 30 Philistines he killed. Now, fill in the blanks. 1. Samson's father's name was Manoah. 2. Samson was a Nazirite to the Lord. 3. The Spirit of the Lord moved in Samson. 4. Samson went down to Timnah. 5. Samson's riddle was answered in 7 days. And 6. Samson struck down 30 men and took their clothes. Okay, applying God's word. We already talked about number 1. I just talked about it briefly. How did Samson's wife break the 6th commandment? She betrayed her husband. And 2, what was the true source of Samson's strength? That's the Spirit of God. And that's going to also come in Samson part 2, which is next. And then number 3 asks us to compare Samson with Jesus, who was the ultimate deliverer. Well, Samson possessed amazing physical strength, and he was able to destroy some of his enemies, and you'll see at the end of Samson part 2. But he also had human weakness that Jesus did not have. Samson was a sinner. One of Samson's weaknesses was women. He would put them ahead of God. Jesus, of course, was perfect and sinless, and he delivered us from sin, death, and the devil. And that is Samson part 1. See you later.